Hello, welcome to Money Matters. This is Mike Dever, your host today, and the co-founder and CEO of Brandywine Asset Management. We have as our guest Ben Johnson, co-founder of Freya Systems, who will bring in the show in a few minutes. But first, let's go to our viewer question. So we have from Mary Kellerman, Philadelphia. How do you handle risk in your business? And I'll interpret that, Mary, as how do I handle in our investment business? How do we handle risk for our clients? And what we do is we have exposure to equity markets and a variety of things. We diversify that as much as we can. But the other thing we do is we add what we call performance protection, which is a combination of some options and other diversified trading in the portfolio that offsets the naked risk that you have from just simply owning stocks. I can explain a little more of that. I've got a slide here. I can show you that talks a little bit about how investors underperform the very funds into which they invest. And this is an issue of risk management and emotions. And what you'll see here on this slide is that over a 20-year period, most investors underperform not just stock funds, but in bond funds, the actual performance of those funds that are invested into. And that's because they're buying when they should be selling and they're selling when they should be buying. And this is a common behavior that you see with investors. Something that's happened recently, you'll see that with the explosion in cryptocurrency, meme stocks, some of these popular names in investing with Tesla, for example, where stocks are running up to 1,000 price to earnings ratios, or you have cryptocurrencies that are trading at 1,000% returns year to date, and things like Dogecoin, they get tweeted up by Elon Musk, and investors are jumping into those, and they're jumping into even derivatives of some of those coins, like the Shiba Inu coin, and others that are almost too difficult to talk about because they tend to be more adult porn based. It's ridiculous. It's just emotions, and it's not a way to manage risk. It's not a way to make money in the long term, but it's something that works in the short term. Unfortunately, these things almost always end badly, especially when you have investors like you do today who are buying stocks not necessarily with a financial motive underpinning their decisions, but they're buying stocks like AMC and GameStop because they want to stick it to somebody else who's maybe short that stock. And whenever you have people that are making non-financially motivated decisions, that's a bad thing. So the one thing that I wanted to point out here is don't be a statistic. Don't be like that graph. Don't underperform the very funds into which you invest. Make rational decisions, follow a process, be as systematic as possible and as disciplined as possible with your investing, so that you don't end up in a position of underperforming the funds into which you invest. Okay, and now this is how you can get your questions answered by Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Thank you. And now we're going to bring in our guest, Ben Johnson. He's co-founder of Freya Systems. And I've had the opportunity to talk with Ben at length already, get a little bit of a background on what he's doing, and I think you'll find it really interesting. Hello, Ben. Thanks, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's talk a little bit about your business, and if you could start out maybe talking about the background of what it is and how you actually got into it.
Yeah, sure thing, Mike. I'd be happy to fill you in. How I got into it, if I look back in my history, I was one of those kids that was fascinated by how things work. So I always used to like take my toys to pieces just to discover how they worked. A few years after that, I discovered the pleasure of flying. I joined the cadet forces and got completely hooked on flying. And trust me, 10 minutes in a glider will hook anyone to flying. As a consequence of that, that really brought me into the aerospace industry. I went to school for aerospace engineering. And from there, I discovered the power of software. And so roll forward to today. And now I own and run a software and data analytics agency. We do a lot of problem solving with software and with people's data, very much focused around artificial intelligence, machine learning, helping them to understand how their business operates and how it could operate better. And one of the things I like to say is we help them predict the future, so we can predict when things are going to fail.
So when you have a client, maybe tell us who would be type of clients that you have?
So we have a range of clients. We focus very much in the aviation industry, but as we're growing, we're broadening out into other industrial sectors. So large aerospace companies where we'll take data off of their aircraft, we'll help them process it and model it, create algorithms that can give them that value, and then stand up a kind of information dashboard so they can, in effect, go fishing in their own data set to understand what's happening. And that's broadening out beyond just defense aviation, anywhere where there's large pieces of industrial equipment, or as I like to say, planes, trains, and automobiles, and then add industrial equipment, machinery. If it's collecting data, we can help and give them insight.
So would this be something that the maintenance departments are using to determine when they may be nearing a failure point on a jet aircraft engine, or what examples can you give that are how this is actually being used by these companies?
Oh, for sure. So whether it's the maintenance department or their mission planning department, their modern aircraft collect a lot of data on board, and so that data gets collected and it gets run through a ground station where our algorithms will provide them with that insight. What that gives them is a complete picture of the health of the aircraft. So now they can understand what the predictions say of when things are going to fail. That allows them to bring parts in. So maybe there are long lead times on some of the parts, so they can predisposition the parts that they need in advance, and they can be prepared to do maintenance at the right time, like at a strategic time when that's effective, versus a failure just occurring and all of a sudden their aircraft is out of service right at the point that they want to go perform a mission or perform an operation. Same is very much true from large industrial equipment. Last thing you want is it failing unexpectedly, because then you have a whole production line down and that can cost you millions.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how did you fare through the pandemic? The commercial aviation industry, obviously, it took a big hit. Did that affect your business?
So it didn't affect our business specifically. It was like everyone. I think that it took us a bit of time to kind of adjust to the new norm. But you mentioned the commercial aviation industry, and yes, that it had a huge impact on both commercial and defense aviation. It really, in all likelihood, it's going to have changed their whole ecosystem. I mean, if you look, they had to pivot. A lot of fleets of aircraft were grounded. In some cases, they may have changed those fleets to provide freight services, which were in higher demand as a consequence. And so now, looking forward, we've got fewer long-haul flights at the moment. So everything's kind of changed and adapted. And aircraft like to be flown. They're just like much machinery. They like to be used and operated. So a consequence of bringing those back into service, of reworking where the maintenance is going to occur, is going to be a real challenge. And I believe that technology is going to help them do that, whether that's the sort of thing that I'm passionate about with artificial intelligence and machine learning, predicting when failure modes are going to happen. It could be the 3D printing space that's certainly taking off, so that now I don't need to worry about having parts at all of my nodes from an aircraft standpoint, but I can print the part I need where I need it. all the way through to blockchain as well, and some of the things that are revolutionizing aviation maintenance records.
Now, when you're saying you can print, it's your customer can print. You're saying,
Yeah, the customer.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
So
not a service you provide, right?
no, that's not something that we provide directly, but it's one of those. I think what I'm witnessing is a lot of the aviation industry is using this kind of pause to apply new technologies and optimize their way of working. And if they can do anything to push more of their maintenance into a scheduled sort of capacity and have more flexibility across all of the network, that's really impactful for their overall business.
So do you see then that the pandemic has accelerated? It sounds like you said with this pause, they're using it and take advantage of that. Is that to start moving into some of these new technologies or exploiting them or working with firms like yours to take advantage of that?
Oh, yes, for sure. I think you can see, new technology is causing a real radicalization in lots of different areas. I mean, if I were to use one example, we can see the likes of Uber and United Airlines, for example, who are now creating personal autonomous vehicles for individual flights from one hop to another. So, and that's been having some slow progress in the background, but I'm definitely seeing signs of changes that are accelerating in their implementation of technology. So for the next 3 to 5 years, I mentioned blockchain, that will be used more in maintenance and distributing maintenance records. So now I have this immutable record of maintenance everywhere. My field of artificial intelligence, it's all around optimizing people's operations. So automating the quality of their data, the production lines for where things are getting either manufactured or heavy maintenance is taking place. So there's lots of optimization in that area. And I'm really excited about where the industry is going as a consequence of them embracing all of this technology, even down to some crazy concepts like the conscious aircraft, which would be an intelligent aircraft that could actually tell you what's wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Wow. But doesn't that put you out of business, the tracking if the aircraft's doing that AI work for you, or how do you see?
I think we're a way off of that full concept, right. but the idea behind it is really exciting, and you'll also see like an aircraft is a complex system of systems. So there's plenty of work to be done between now and then to help that vision become a reality. So
when do you see? It sounds like you were touching on the autonomous air taxis. Is that right? I mean, is that something? Mm-hmm. That's really coming down the road, and if so, when is that going to happen?
Oh, I see. I think in the next few years we will start to see some of those vehicles actually used. I think it's going to take them a while for them to come into much larger circulation, but I can certainly see smaller taxi hops, pre-scheduled flights. There are already a great number of those aircraft out there that have already passed validation. The next step is that last bit of autonomy and allowing full autonomous flight, which that's down to regulatory bodies more than anything else.
Right. It almost seems like that would be easier to accomplish in the air than it would be on the ground because of the reduced variables. You don't have as many obstacles and different things happening as you do on the ground.
Yeah, and it's actually surprising. Most aircraft can already take off and land themselves today. So quite often the human beings are just supervising them more than something.
Interesting. Now, the technologies that you're developing both for your business and that you're seeing developed in the marketplace, some of these things we're talking about, how do you see those impacting businesses in the greater Philadelphia area?
And that's a really interesting kind of area that I'm exploring today as well, Mike. So that's a great question. I mean, I see in the Philadelphia area, we've got a lot of manufacturing and we've got a lot of the life sciences side of things. So from a local manufacturing standpoint, I can see huge advancements. We have things called computer vision. That's not just for autonomous cars. It's not just about self-driving nets. about being able to focus a camera on either a feeder of material or a production line where I'm making something, and the computer can identify, are the material levels correct? Have I got defects? So all the way through to monitoring the actual health of the equipment, whether that's the large-scale manufacturing machine or not. So I can see, I mentioned earlier, you shut down a production line and that can cost a lot. So all of these technologies will not only improve the quality of material and optimize the actual operation itself, reducing material costs, but they'll help in predicting failures to prevent them from happening.
Is that something your company's involved with today and working with industry? And do you have local companies that you're partnering with this on that?
Yes, yeah, we're partnering today with some local companies in exactly that space, kind of helping them either optimize large pieces of equipment or optimize those kind of feeders of material with what's called this computer vision, so interpreting video data. So yeah, that's certainly one thing that's impacting this region. I mentioned life sciences as well, and we've just been through a pandemic, and a lot of that, the rapid development of the COVID vaccine that we're all taking now is down to some of the advances on machine learning being able to accelerate that process. And I can see many more implementations of the same sort of thing. So accelerating drug discovery, automating a lot of things like interpreting X-rays. You know what I mean? Like a machine is very good at really repetitive tasks where it's the same thing. So if it's an X-ray of somebody's lungs, it's going to be great at diagnosing that quicker, and that allows the doctors and the hospital staff to stay focused on what's next for the patient, what's the right patient care.
And at some point, you get rid of the doctor. Is you see these in the movies and the TV, the robots take over the world, and people are now, subjects of the computers. Is that happening, or are we supposed to be fearing these, or is this all good?
No, this is all good, Mike. And I hear this a lot. This is one of the things that I think a lot of people instantly draw to, because, as you mentioned, this science fiction has fed us this idea of killer robots or robots taking over, and that's far from the truth. That's what's called artificial general intelligence. So it's this all-knowing intelligence that will replace us. And less than 2% of existing artificial intelligence projects are in that space. And they're really big players. 98% of the development that's going on today is in what's called artificial narrow intelligence. And that's, in my humble opinion, is going to be the impacting force. That is automating tasks. So it's taking the burden away from humans. It's not replacing them. It's not going to replace a job. What it's going to do is it's going to automate those mundane tasks. Computers are great at some specific things, like automating the same repetitive task, but ask them to adapt on the fly, and that's where it becomes a lot more challenging. So there's always going to be a place for humans in that case.
I definitely tend to agree on your side. I feel like through the years we hear, through the last centuries, really, every time a new technology comes on, people are afraid of it replacing people, and people will no longer have jobs. Their jobs will be taken by the machines, and what are the people going to do? And all it really has done is increase productivity and increase the opportunity for people to do better than they did without the automation or without the intelligence, in some of these the software and machines. So yeah, I think it's great. The question now I have is, are we positioned? The U.S. position, is this area positioned, is the Greater Philadelphia area, to handle this change and this revolution? Are we producing the people we need, and are they educated, and what kind of education do they need to be able to operate in this kind of environment, or to help build out some of these systems?
And again, that's a great question, Mike. And I just to touch briefly on your earlier point, I agree wholeheartedly with you that we're in a second technology revolution, and that is going to be different. It's not jobs are going to change. I mean, there's a McKinsey study which looked at how many jobs were going to be displaced and how many were going to be created as a consequence of just artificial intelligence. And the estimate is 400 to 800 million will be displaced from it, but 550 to almost 900 million will be replaced with artificial intelligence. So I think it's going to be an artificial intelligence based jobs. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's going to be a huge area of growth. I don't think we're fully prepared for it yet. I think there's more for us to do. There's a high demand for the skills. So the skills that are needed are computer science, storytelling, and some fairly heavy mathematics. And there's also growth in, I mentioned blockchain earlier, there's growth in cybersecurity, which I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with at the moment, as well as existing kind of automation and digital transformation activities. So I think the US has a lot to do because there's going to be very high demands for the same resources in all of those different areas going into the future. And I think it's, so my personal approach would be we need to focus on reskilling that workforce. And I think that's possible. We work with boot camps who do that sort of thing all the time. And the more of that we can do.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting there because I'm really thinking that's one area where you can retrain, you get people that are in the workforce moving into some of these new jobs. But I think the real answer probably has to be inspiring younger people into taking this direction. You had the space race in the 60s, and it just really brought a lot of people into engineering and science and the whole tech type industry, and that we had a lot of benefits from that, not just from landing on the moon, but things that came out of that. What's going to inspire the young kids today, the elementary school kids, that are looking out there and saying, this is what I want to be when I grow up? Because a lot of them don't know what they're doing until they go off to college, maybe. But a lot of them form those ideas early. How do you reach them so that we do have the proper workforce with the proper skills necessary?
And that's a really interesting question, and I think there's a lot of depth to that. When you look at it, we need to be inspiring them to take on more, I think, creative skills and decision-making sort of skills. I'm certainly very supportive of any education around the STEM field, because all of that will feed into exactly what we're talking about, and what will inspire those kids. And I think more than anything, we need to show them what's possible. I think I don't have children myself, so I don't have like face-to-face experience with someone going through the current education system. But I think the more we can show them the power of programming and show them how easy it is to achieve some fairly interesting tasks with a bit of programming skills, with some robotics kind of training. And I know there are robotics camps out there for kids where they can have tons of fun and learn as they go. And I think anything that stimulates learning, that's a core value of our company. So
I think a Jetson style sky taxi would do it for me. I'd love to see that. I think that'd be great. What do you see as the impediments and challenges to really reaching the full potential of the AI that you're involved with today and what you see coming down the road?
Okay, yeah, and I think that falls down to what we were just touching upon, which is education, and then the second part of the coin is really application. So from an education standpoint, it's educating everyone that, back to the earlier killer robots, artificial intelligence isn't going to replace you. It's not going to replace your job. It's going to automate tasks for you. So that is key, to bring everyone on board, to recognize the power of what this can do for us, to free us up to do the more interesting parts of our role rather than the mundane copy and paste. And then from an application standpoint, I mean, ethics and bias is a very hot topic in the AI space at the moment. We can have a whole conversation just about that. But AI itself isn't inherently unethical. Just like most things, it's how you train it, how you use it. So I think we need to be applying some more energy and effort into what problems we use it to solve, and what problems are best left to you and me as human beings.
Okay. So I have a final question here. If someone wants to get in this into the industry, learn more about AI technologies, and how they can use it in their business, what would you recommend for them?
So one of the things that I recommend to everyone is there's a thought leader in the AI space, a man called Andrew Ng. He teaches at Stanford. He has some courses on Coursera, and he is a great starting point. He can explain this in a beautiful way, far more articulately than me, and in a very engaging fashion. So just start to learn some of it. When it comes to that, applying it, I would suggest reaching out to agents. Companies could reach out to agencies like ours. We always love learning about new problems and helping people explore it. And we'd be happy to just kind of sit down with somebody and explore what the art of the possible is. But most of all, I would say just get started. Start with some like more simplistic, some straightforward, low-hanging fruit projects that you know are going to work and gain some momentum. But just do it because there can be some very high rewards for applying these kind of technologies, and I think it can accelerate every business everywhere. And just getting started builds the momentum.
Well, Ben, thank you very much. I appreciate your time on the show and your insights into the business and AI and what we're going to be seeing going forward. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our viewers, for our next show, we're going to have Howard Lubert of Keiretsu Forum. And I want you to leave remembering that with you, your money matters. Thank you.